This day in sports history. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. It's September 2nd, and on this day in 1972, it was one of the greatest comebacks in Olympic track history. Dave Wottle was not really an 800-meter runner. He loved the mile. As a collegian at Bowling Green, he was a miler, running 4:06 as a freshman, and then he lowered his time to a sub-4 mile as a sophomore. By his own admission, he was only an 800-meter man for about 2 months in his running career. At an AAU meet in 1972, his coach suggested he run the 800 to see if he could beat the qualifying time for the Olympic trials. And he did, qualifying for a shot at Munich by 0.2 of a second. When he got to the trials, his intention was to run the 800 as a speed workout in preparation for his main focus, which was the 1,500 meter later in the meet. He surprised a lot of people when he not only won the U.S. Olympic qualifier, but he beat the world record time with a time of 1 minute 44.3 seconds. He also qualified for the 1,500 meter event in Munich, placing second behind Jim Ryan. And then, according to his coach Bill Bowerman, he went and did something stupid. He got married a few days after the Olympic trials. Bowerman was pissed, saying he traded a gold medal for a wife. So not even his coach gave him much of a chance on this day in the 800-meter final, despite being the world record holder. The favorite that day was the Ukrainian Evgeny Arzhinov, running for the Soviet Union. He had not been beaten in the 800-meter in the previous 3 years. There were also 2 Kenyans in the field, Mike Boit and Robert Uko, who were also contenders for gold. When the gun sounded, the pace ramped up quickly, and Wottle fell behind immediately, losing contact with the group. The leader covered the first 200 meters in 24.9 seconds, which was blazing fast. But Wottle benefited from the fact that nobody really wanted to lead the race at the 200-meter mark. The 800 is nearly full gas from the gun, but you want to have something in reserve for the finish, and the guy out front at the start of the bell lap is usually a sucker. So the pace slowed enough that it allowed Wottle to latch back onto the tail of the pack at the end of the first lap. The leader covered the first 400 meters in 52.3 seconds. And with about 300 meters to go, Arzhinov hit the nitro booster switch and he took off. Wottle went with him.
First and second, there he goes. There with him. There's Arzhinov from the Soviet Union going up to the lead now. There goes Arzhinov, the favorite, taking the lead. Dave Wottle is making his bid. He's not in too bad position right now. I think Dave's in great position on this. At this point, he's in perfect position on the outside. Good striking distance for this last 100, 200 meters. Stand by for the kick of Dave Wottle. If he's got it, he could make it. But he's got to catch Arzhinov and the Kenyans. And here he comes. This is the bid for a gold medal of Dave Wottle. He's got one Kenyan. I think he's going to get it. Make it. I think he did it. Dave Wottle won the gold medal. The man who came out of nowhere in the U.S. Olympic trials. The man who then got married, and some people said he should have gotten married. It was going to ruin him. He came up with 2 bad knees. He couldn't train for weeks. And he has come in and won the gold medal, the first tremendously exciting moment in track for the United States in these Olympic Games.
0.03 of a second was the margin of victory, which at the time was the closest 800-meter finish in Olympic history. From worst to first, Dave the Throttle Wottle shocked a lot of people with his sprint in the final 200 to win gold. Oh, and in his bid for the 1,500 meter, the more to his liking event, he failed to make the final, getting bounced in the semis. Speaking of coming out of nowhere to shake up the world, how about what happened on this day in 1995 when the Northwestern Wildcats went to South Bend and upset the 9th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish? The Wildcats came into their season opener as a 4-touchdown underdog, And that made a lot of sense, considering that Northwestern had not had a winning season in 24 years, and they had lost to the Irish 14 consecutive times. But the Wildcats had a new attitude, and they played under the motto, "Expect victory." They got things started off great, causing a fumble on Notre Dame's opening drive, and then they turned that into points with a Steve Schnurr to Dave Beasley pass and catch for a touchdown. Field goals followed for both teams, and then Notre Dame scored on a 5-yard run by Robert Farmer, but a missed extra point would prove costly, and when they went to the locker room at the half, the Wildcats led 10-9. Northwestern extended their lead in the third quarter.
Piles in motion. Fake to Autry. Schnurr rifles it. Complete to Bates. Touchdown.
The Cats were up 8 after Dwayne Bates reeled in that Schnurr pass for a 26-yard strike. In the fourth quarter, Notre Dame drove down the field and Randy Kinder punched it in from 2 yards out. But with that missed extra point earlier in the game, Lou Holtz went for the 2-point conversion. But Ron Paulus was tripped up by one of his own linemen as he dropped back to pass and he fell to the turf. So it remained a 2-point game. Notre Dame still had plenty of time, and they got the ball back with 4.5 minutes to play in this one, but they could not convert a crucial third down, and they gave the ball back to Northwestern, and they never saw it again. From a 28-point underdog to a 2-point winner, it was the start of a special season for Northwestern. The Wildcats will go on to win 10 games that season, win the Big Ten for the first time since 1936, and make their first Rose Bowl appearance since 1949. On this day in 1956, it was one of the greatest acts of selflessness on a racetrack. It was the final race of the season, and the Formula One series was in Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. 3 drivers had a legitimate shot at the championship. There was series leader and 2-time defending champion Juan Manual Fangio. He was a Ferrari driver, and he had a slim 8-point lead over his teammate Peter Collins and Jean Barra in a Maserati. Fangio was the cagey veteran, and he started the race on the pole. Collins was a 24-year-old rookie, and he started 3 rows back. The track at Monza had a reputation at that time of being really tough on tires. On the 5th lap, 2 other Ferrari drivers battling for the lead blew tires, but they were able to limp it back to the pits. On lap 11, Collins blew a tire, but he was also able to keep it out of trouble and get back to his pit for a new one. Fangio seemed to be budgeting his car a little better than all the others. Through 17 laps, he had managed to avoid any tire issues, but on lap 18, he had a different problem. Fangio's Ferrari pulled into the pits with a broken steering arm. The wheels were splayed in opposite directions. His race car was toast. Barra and his Maserati also would pull into the pits with irreparable issues and retire. That left Collins as the only driver on the track with a solid chance to win the championship, if he stayed on the racetrack. At the halfway point, he was running 4th. By lap 35, he had gained another spot up to 3rd. He came in for new tires then, and when he saw Fangio and his retired race car, the rookie barely hesitated. He hopped out of his race car and he gave it to his teammate. Fangio understood the rookie's sacrifice, and he was nearly moved to tears in that moment, but he got into the race car and he got back on the racetrack. So, at this point, if a race car was shared between 2 drivers, the points were split. If Collins had stayed in the car and finished the race, he would have won the F1 championship. Instead, Fangio moved up to 2nd place, and he finished the race 6 seconds behind the winner to secure enough points to win his 3rd straight points championship and his 4th overall. Fangio would win his final championship the following year. Collins figured that as a 24-year-old rookie and the success that he'd had in his rookie season, he'd get another chance. Sadly, Collins was killed in a racing accident 2 years later in Germany. Jean Barra, also mentioned in this story, would be killed in a separate racing crash in Germany in 1959. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books, and with you being a sports fan just like me, here's 2 suggestions for your next great sports read. If you love basketball, then you need to add Dave Zarum's book, NBA 75, The Definitive History. Uncover untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. From the league's humble beginnings to its modern glory, it is a courtside seat to 75 years of NBA history. And if you're a golf fanatic, then you gotta check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget. I've used it as a reference in this podcast over the past year for lots of stories that I've done, and I can tell you from experiencing it, this is a great book. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. It's the closest you'll ever get to walking the fairways with the greatest to ever play the game. Grab your copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available from Firefly, wherever you get your books. On this day in 1979, Philadelphia Eagles kicker Tony Franklin became the first barefoot kicker in the NFL. This was a fairly brief period in football history, but there were several guys who shed the shoe and sock on their kicking foot to kick field goals, PATs, and kickoffs. The Eagles were playing at home against the New York Giants. Franklin kicked a couple of extra points, but he also missed one. And then in the third quarter, he lined up for a 46-yard field goal, and he nailed it. The Eagles went on to win the game 23-17. Afterward, as you can probably imagine, there was some interest in Franklin's barefoot kicking. He said the reason he did it was out of necessity. He said he couldn't really kick the football with distance or accuracy with a shoe on. He had experimented with it back in high school, but he wore a sock then. Once he got to Texas A&M, he shed the sock as well and ended up kicking a 65-yarder in a game in 1976. On this day in 2013, after decades of trying, Diana Nyad finally achieved her goal of swimming the distance between Cuba and the United States. Her first attempt back in 1978 was derailed by strong winds and swells after spending 46 hours in the water and swimming close to 76 miles. 33 years later, in 2011, the then 61-year-old Nyad dove in the water again off the coast of Cuba. Her second attempt ended after 29 hours. Shoulder pain and an asthma flare-up scuttled that attempt. She made a third attempt in September of that year that ended after box jellyfish stings caused her to have a severe respiratory reaction. Her fourth attempt in August 2012 bettered her previous attempts, but again, jellyfish stings and approaching storms ended that bid. On August 31, 2013, Nyad plunged into the waters off Havana to make her fifth attempt to swim the 110 miles. Unlike previous attempts, this one did not include swimming in a shark cage, but there were shark deterrent devices and shark divers employed to provide a level of security. She also wore a mask to protect her face from jellyfish stings. And just before 2 o'clock on this day in 2013, Nyad landed at Smathers Beach in Key West, Florida, after spending 52 hours and 54 minutes in the water. And I've talked recently about the English Channel crossings and the first people who accomplished that feat. Well, the swim from Cuba to Key West is equivalent to about 5 channel crossings. Nyad said that the inspiration for the swim developed from a comment her mom made when she was 9 years old and standing on a South Florida beach. Her mom pointed out across the sea and into the distance and said, "Havana is right out there. It's so close that you little swimmer, you could actually swim there." And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. If you don't think that the little things add up, well, consider this. In 1987, airlines in the U.S. decided they needed to cut costs, so they started with olives. By removing one olive from all the salads in first class, they saved $40,000. That's all I've got for you today. This and every episode of This Day in Sports History is researched, written, voiced, and produced by me, Steve White. I also created the music. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.